Just ahead on American Black Journal, the crisis in Detroit public schools. I'm going to talk with the head of the Detroit Federation of Teachers about several recent developments, including the poor conditions inside some school buildings and the emergency manager's resignation. Plus, it's American Heart Month. We have some life-saving advice for African American women. Stay right there. American Black Journal starts now.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. In recent weeks, teachers in the Detroit Public School District have held mass sick-outs to draw attention to the poor conditions inside some of the school buildings. A recent city inspection found code violations in several schools, including missing floor and ceiling tiles, mold, water damage, and rodents. The teachers union has gone to court to force repairs and to allow their own environmental experts to check out the safety of the buildings. They also asked the judge to get rid of the district's state-appointed emergency manager, Darnell Early. However, Early has already said he's going to step down at the end of this month. Joining me now to talk about the developments is Ivy Bailey, interim president of the Detroit Federation of Teachers. Welcome to Detroit. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
Yeah. So let's talk about where we are with this, the sick-outs in particular. You guys came under a lot of fire for the fact that teachers sort of left the schools. Lots of schools had to close. I've been sort of saying, what else did you want teachers to do? I know enough teachers in Detroit schools. I hear from enough teachers all the time about the conditions. No one was responding to these conditions until the sick-outs happened. Do you feel like you've made the point that you needed to make and that you'll now get the attention that you need?
Stephen, I feel now that the point was made, but I'm still hoping locally that we get the attention that we need. Mr. Early has stepped down, but he's going to be here until the end of the month. Personally, I would like Mr. Early to be gone today. And I think now the ball is in the governor's court. What is he going to do to make Detroit Public Schools fiscally sound? What is going to happen to our district as a whole? You know, we keep hearing all this about old code, new code. The teachers are kind of on edge because we don't know whether or not we're going to have Detroit Public Schools next year. We don't know if school is going to continue after April. So as far as the finances go, we need some answers.
Right. And that's not just a short-term question about you know, whether schools stay open in April or whether we come up with the money to pay off the debts that have been run up over the last 8 or 9 years. But it's also, how does the system survive going forward, right? I mean, that's something you guys deal with every day.
Correct. I know our school funding, I don't think Detroit Public Schools is funded correctly. We have a large population of students with special needs, which costs a lot of money to educate them.
Sure.
And I think the state needs to look at the disproportionate amount of special ed students that we have. And I think we need to be funded correctly, because if not, even if we come back and we pay off the debt, if we start again, if we don't have the correct funding, we're going to be right back where we are now.
Yeah, yeah. About a year ago, we had this very broad spectrum of people come together to come up with a plan for moving Detroit Public Schools forward, to figure out what could be done about money, what could be done about curriculum, all kinds of things that that would make things better. That didn't become the legislation that we're now seeing in Lansing. It's a little different. Some of the ideas got in, a lot of them didn't. Where does the teachers union stand on those ideas? Is the coalition what you guys are sort of banking on as the way forward, or is there another idea?
Okay, so I know the coalition that you're speaking of. I participate on a coalition in the academic committee. I was very pleased with many of the things that came out of the academic committee. I'm not seeing those now in the bills that are being put forth.
Right.
So I would like for us to revisit some of those things. But you know, I really think that the powers that be need to speak to teachers. We're on the front lines every day. So if you would come down and speak to teachers, you would find out what's really needed. There's always policies being made without teacher input, and that needs to change.
Yeah. Speaking of policy being made about teachers, there are bills that are being introduced to try to punish teachers for things like sick-outs, which some people are saying are just strikes disguised as something else. Tell me, has anyone from Lansing, has anyone from, for instance, the Senate Education Committee in Lansing come down to talk with you or to talk with other teachers about what's going on in the school system, or do they seem like they just want to pass laws?
They just want to pass laws. I was there Monday. I was speaking to the committee, and I just felt it was disingenuous for them to not want teachers to speak out on behalf of children. It's one thing if you're just, you're talking about money, my pay. That's not what this was about. This was about what is best for children. We're talking about environmental issues that can affect children. And, and coming off the whole Flint thing and having Mr. Early be the emergency manager in Flint and in Detroit, there wasn't a lot of trust. And especially when we're bringing forth these environmental issues and nothing's being done. I mean, it was just blatant disregard when the issues were brought to him.
Yeah, and so you went to Lansing to testify about this. Have the legislators in Lansing ever come down to talk to you or to see the schools that you guys teach in here?
No. They haven't talked to me personally. I do know one of our Detroit Representatives, Sherry Gay Denago, did bring a group of legislators down, but those who needed to come weren't there. So those who I spoke to in the Education Committee, with the exception of, I believe it was Senator Knizik, they need to come down and they need to follow teachers for a day. They need to stand in their shoes, and I think that they would have a better understanding of what we deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah. After the sick outs, we saw Mayor Duggan respond and say he was going to go take a look at some schools. He went, saw the conditions that existed. He said that he would do what he could to have the city address some of those. The state has also said that they're committed to addressing those conditions. But tell me about what's going on right now. Have you seen anything in the schools change since this happened? Are they fixing the ceiling tiles? I mean, those photos that we had in the opening, are we seeing that stuff taken care of at this point?
We're seeing a little bit, but Stephen, what we're seeing is Band-Aids. It's not being repaired correctly. And that's part of why we want these environmental specialists to come in, because there's certain type of cleaning that has to be done. But we also want to know, when you talk about mold, what type of mold is there? Is there an immediate danger in the buildings? We want those answers, and we want them now. So for the district to not allow us to go into the buildings currently, I just think it was not a good move. We're trying to work together with the district. We're even saying that we will pay for this. It's time for some immediate actions. It's time for change.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about governance. You guys wanted Darnell Early out as emergency manager. Do you want to go back to a system where we have a superintendent and elected school board? Is that part
Correct.
of the, but at the same time, when we had that governance here in Detroit, certainly in the 2000s, in the 90s, the early 90s, mid 90s, when I covered DPS for the Free Press, that didn't work either. I mean, is there something else that we're missing about how to make schools work and kids successful? It seems like no matter what the governance is in Detroit, the outcomes aren't there.
But I think we need to have some parameters around school board people. I think there needs to be maybe a job description. There needs to be some requirements. I do believe that the city of Detroit needs an elected school board. At this point, there is nowhere you can go in the city of Detroit and express yourself and express your concerns in the school district. It's just not there. Right. With the emergency management system, we were at their beck and call. It was a dictatorship. You could go and you could talk to them if they allowed you to come. Right. Otherwise, you had no recourse.
Yeah. What about the governance, though, do you think connects to that academic piece that needs to sort of come more into focus so that we get the outcomes we want in schools?
Yeah, I would love to see a superintendent, someone who is well-versed in education, someone who knows curriculum and pedagogy, someone who has actually worked in a school. It makes a difference when you've worked in a school, so you kind of know how things work. So I would definitely like to see a superintendent, and once again, I still would like to see an elected school board, but I think there may need to be some parameters on who is on the school board. I think we need a well-rounded school board.
Yeah. One of the things that historically I've always worried about is retaining teachers in the district through all of the turmoil that we have. Lots of different people in charge. We go through superintendents faster than almost any other district. Now we've gone through emergency managers faster than any other place. And this year with the sick outs, the conditions in the school, do you worry that a lot of the teachers in your ranks may be thinking about going and doing this job somewhere else next year, which of course would make it only worse for kids in Detroit?
Stephen, we've already lost a lot of good teachers. The teachers who are still here, they're still here because they care about the students of the city of Detroit. They're the constant. We have teachers who, if they move from one school to the next, the parents move their children with them.
To keep that teacher.
To keep that continuity with their child. So people need to understand that it's not always about money. I believe the teachers in Detroit public schools need a raise.
Right, and you're
but
paid well. Right?
Yes, but at this point, it's not about money. It's about the children. It's about the environments that they're learning in, and there needs to be a change in that. We need to start putting children first.
Yeah. Do you have hope that this will get fixed and fixed in the time frame that it needs to, so that A, we don't run out of money in April, and B, we can start next school year with a Detroit public school system intact?
This didn't happen overnight. It's going to take a while, and we understand that, but I have hope that it's going to happen. And I just hope we start working together so it can happen sooner than later.
Do you see the governor as an ally in this so far, or do you see him as an obstacle?
So far, I'm going to be honest, so far I see the governor as an obstacle only because he's the one that put the emergency managers in place. After the first emergency management, when you saw that instead of our deficit decreasing, that it increased, I think we should have looked at it then. We should not have gotten to where we're at now. This is just blown totally out of proportion, and now everybody's trying to figure out how they're going to fix Detroit public schools.
It was actually Jennifer Granholm, the previous governor, who sent the first emergency manager.
Yes.
He has sent several since then.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Ivy Bailey, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Coming up next on American Black Journal, a national campaign to help prevent the #1 killer of African American women. But first, here's a look at some important moments in Detroit's Black history.
I'm Ken Coleman with a look back at African American life in Detroit. This week in 1948, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, creator of Black History Month, was keynote speaker at Second Baptist Church. In 1965, Motown Records released Stop in the Name of Love by the Supreme. And in 1964, fashion designer Tracy Reese was born. These are significant events this week in Detroit's Black history, taken from the book On This Day, African American Life in Detroit.
February is American Heart Month. It's a good time to draw attention to the leading cause of death in women, heart disease. The American Heart Association's Go Red for Women campaign aims to end heart disease and stroke in women through education and lifestyle changes. In the African American community, the incidence of heart disease are extremely alarming. More than 48,000 black women die from the disease every year, and only about 50% of African American women are even aware of the signs and symptoms of a heart attack. Even fewer recognize that heart disease is their greatest health risk. Here to tell us more about local efforts is the campaign co-chair, Janice Cosby Bridges of Ascension Health, Michigan, along with Dr. Alexia Norwood, a family practice specialist with the Henry Ford Medical Group. Thanks for being here, both of you.
Thank you.
And you
Thank
have
you.
your red
I have it, I'm ready.
Go Red for Women.
Go Red, I'm ready.
All right, so talk to me about the campaign.
Well, the campaign is a passion of mine because, as you just said, African American women don't realize that it is the #1 killer in our community, as well as 1 out of 3 women die of heart disease every year.
Right.
And so, you know, it's something that I'm very passionate about. I want to educate African American women about it. It also affects Hispanic women in that community too. So there's going to be a luncheon next week on the 12th of February, And it's going to be a wonderful time where we'll have workshops and we'll have a auction, a silent auction, and a wonderful speaker. And it's just seeing the women come together in their red and, learning more about heart disease. It's just going to be a wonderful time.
Right, and those numbers that I read off there in the intro, they're unbelievable. I mean,
yes, they are.
It is an awareness issue, obviously.
It is an
I mean,
awareness.
I didn't know, and I imagine a lot of other people don't either.
Right, and we're not getting checkups, and I'm sure the physician will talk about that, but we just don't. We don't talk to our physicians about it, and we just need to be more educated about heart disease.
Yeah. We're talking about this in the context of this campaign and this specific issue and these specific numbers. But this is sort of a broader issue about health and health maintenance and management in the African American community.
Oh, well, very, very much so. Heart disease is the #1 killer of men and women. Every ethnicity is affected by heart disease. It kills. It's not bias. It kills men and women of all ethnicities and different age groups. So we think it's really important, because it's the #1 killer, to make sure that people do the right things. And the first thing to do is to make sure that you see your doctor, get the help and the screening tests that you need. So if our women get a well healthness exam, a woman's wellness exam, we'll actually be able to tell them what their risk factors are and hopefully help to decrease the risk of having an incident. So,
and how old should women be when they start thinking about this? Is this something that affects young women too, or is it as you get older?
So heart disease, women 20 and older have an increased risk of heart disease, right? And the risk are actually
20 and older.
20 and older.
Wow.
And one of the concerns for us has been the fact that women younger and younger are getting the risk factors, because one of the risk factors for heart disease is obesity. Another one is diabetes and high blood pressure.
And we're seeing that increase among young people.
We're seeing that at younger and younger ages because of the lifestyles we've all chosen to live, including smoking, which is one of the big risk factors for heart disease.
Yeah.
And young women are choosing to smoke even younger, thinking that it will help them to maintain their weight or to decrease their weight.
Right.
When it's actually doing is killing their heart muscles and affecting their brain. So heart disease is really big as they even start to get older.
Yeah. And so when we talk about these kind of campaigns, how do you reach women in a large, I mean, this is a large contingent of women who have to be reached.
Yes, it is.
To talk about that, how do you get sort of past those barriers to?
Well, I think it's really going out into the community, and that's the one thing I really love about the American Heart Association and Go Red, because they go to the community. They go out to schools, they go out to churches, and they always are, trying to educate us about the dangers of heart disease. I mean, I always thought I would die of cancer because my mother died of cancer, and then I learned, I didn't know, I learned that heart disease is the #1 killer of women. And so it's even people like me, who are educated, it was just astounding to me that it's something that we need to be aware of, and Go Red for Women really does do a great job. It just doesn't end with the luncheon, but it's something that the American Heart Association, Go Red, they do all year, just to educate women about this. And of course, there's a lot on the goredforwomen.org. You can go there and find out a lot of information.
And how receptive do you find women to these numbers, these bits of information about this disease and how prevalent it is and how much they need to pay attention?
When I talk to my friends and family, my sisters, they're just shocked. Usually people are just totally astounded that, this is the #1 killer of women. And I think that usually when you educate them about it, they usually become active and want to see their physicians and learn more about it. So it's just about educating women.
Yeah. It seems to be that one of the ways into this issue is through family, through African American families, because as you point out, it's not just African American women who are at risk for this, it's African American men as well. That gets to the issue of access and healthcare in the country, how African Americans sort of interact with that system, the healthcare system, differently from others.
Yeah. So we know that with the Affordable Care Act, that's given access thankfully a lot more access to individuals who didn't have insurance before. And it's really important to get an alignment so that you can align with your primary care physician. But it does start at home, and we know that families, education starts with modeling in the home. So seeing parents have foods that are healthier foods, not doing the processed foods, foods high in salt, trying to avoid those. Cooking, I always tell my patients at Henry Ford Health System to eat from the ground. Eat from the ground, meaning don't buy your food off of a package. Eat your food from the ground, things that are grown. That actually helps to decrease the salt in your food, and hopefully helps to decrease your blood pressure.
Right.
So there's a lot that we can do, but it starts with the risk factors.
And is the tie here between high blood pressure and other things to heart disease? I mean, is that sort of the vehicle through which you get that sort of exposure?
Yeah. So the number one risk factor for heart disease is having high blood pressure.
High blood pressure, okay.
Yeah, and that's the number one risk factor. But diabetes is another risk factor. Smoking is a risk factor. Being sedentary, not moving, is a big risk factor in our community. And we know that 4 out of 5 African American women are overweight or obese.
Wow.
So if we don't do something about those numbers now, changing that in our homes, it will affect generations to come.
Yeah. Well, when we talk about lifestyle changes, that's very difficult, right? I mean,
yes.
it's really easy to say, I'm going to do something different now, to try to lose a couple of pounds or to try to get fit for the summer or whatever. It's another thing to sort of change your life so that all the time you're doing it differently.
Right, it's a total lifestyle change. Like you said, it's just not a one-shot deal. I mean, I remember when I started with Go Red, I ate a little poorly, and I've improved my eating habits. I don't use table salt anymore. I exercise. I've always been an exercise person, but really, I like what you said about eating from the ground up. Reading labels. We need to learn how to read those packages, and kind of when you go shopping, go on the outskirts of the grocery store, not in between, and eating all those processed foods. And in the African American community, we are notorious for doing that. Fast foods and eating processed foods, and so it affects our whole life, our life. And so again, I think we need to see our physicians.
Yeah.
We need to see our primary care physicians, have regular checkups, and that's something that we just don't do. We sometimes present ourselves in the emergency rooms and think that's going to take care of us.
Right.
And that's not what we need. We need to see our primary care physicians every year.
Yeah, and that's a difficult hurdle to get over too, to get people to understand you do have to go once a year.
Because most people think that they need to see a doctor when they're sick.
When they don't feel good.
And when they don't feel good. But our main objectives are to take care of patients before they get sick. So we want to prevent your first heart attack, because we know for women, when they have their first heart attack, they're more likely to die than men.
Is that true? I didn't know that either.
Women, when they have their
Why
first
is
heart
that so?
attack, because of the multiple risk factors and the support systems. Women tend to be caregivers, so they will help take care of the male in the home who's had a heart attack or a stroke, but who's taking care of them when something happens.
Yeah.
So the risk factors for women are real, and when they have their first heart attack, their disabilities are even worse than men. So they have more disability, more physical limitations, and much more effect on their lifestyle. So you don't want to treat your heart attack. You want to prevent the heart attack by reducing your risk factors.
Yeah. One of the things I mentioned in the open is that a lot of women don't know the signs of heart disease or heart attack. How do you break that barrier?
So one, we know that the multiple risk factors such as high blood pressure, there are no symptoms. And very often women and men think, I know my blood pressure's up because I have a headache. No, you have a headache. Your blood pressure can be up when you have absolutely no symptoms.
When you feel fine.
It's the silent killer.
Right.
So most people have no symptoms. That's the reason you need to check your blood pressure to know where it is and where your blood tests are with your cholesterol, your blood sugar, so that you know what those risk factors are. But the signs for women can be very different. The number one sign and symptom for men and women is chest pain. So women and men have chest pain as the number one symptom, but women more often have more vague symptoms where it's not chest pain but a pressure. Sometimes they describe having just fatigue, like having a flu, or having shortness of breath, feeling sweaty, feeling tight, having a pain in their back. up their jaw or in their arm, symptoms that can be very different that men may not describe.
Right.
More so just having, and one woman actually complained of having more like heartburn symptoms where you hear it a lot, and they think it's related to something that they ate. So the symptoms can be different. But what we want you to know is when you have any of those symptoms, don't try to figure it out thinking it's something else, and very often that's the case, that they assume it's something else. Call 911, get the help that you need. Let us tell you
Right.
that it's indigestion and not a heart attack.
Right, right. We've got about a minute left. How can just ordinary women engage with
Right.
this campaign?
Go to goredforwomen.org to find out more information. And we would love to have more. We have tickets left, I'm sure, for next Friday, February the 12th, for the Go Red event. Kim Coles, who is a comedian, actress, author, is going to be the guest speaker, and
Okay.
she's fabulous. And we're taking a little different spin on the luncheon this year. It's going to have a lot of humor, but also a lot of education
Right.
about what the Go Red organization does.
Okay, and
Yeah.
get people focused on the way to do this and the long term, the big
Right.
picture,
Right.
Not just now, but always.
Right. And if you have any of those symptoms, get in.
Right.
Please make sure we wait. We have a tendency as women not to take care of ourselves, but
Yeah.
please see your doctors.
Okay, thank you both for being here, and good luck with the campaign.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
That's our program for today. Thanks for watching. You can get more information about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org. As always, you can connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. Plus, you can hear our program on WDET 1019 FM. We'll see you next time.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.